In the deepest vaults beneath the fortress world of Cardmore, where the ancient stones hummed with power older than the Orc civilization itself, Warlord Grash the Destroyer stood before a discovery that would reshape the very nature of warfare across the galaxy. The chamber had been sealed for millennia, hidden behind walls that bore the mathematical scars of weapons that could slice through reality itself. When his excavation teams had finally broken through, they had found something that defied everything the Orcs thought they knew about power. The portal generator was a thing of crystalline beauty and terrible purpose, its faceted surfaces reflecting light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Ancient symbols covered its base equations that described the relationship between matter, energy, and the speed of light in ways that made even Grash's most learned shamans weep with incomprehension. "Tell me again what your instruments detect," Grash grumbled to his chief technician, a scarred orc named Borthak who had served the Destroyer for over 3 decades of conquest. Borthak consulted his primitive scanning devices, instruments that seemed laughably crude compared to the elegance of the artifact before them. "The energy readings are beyond our ability to measure accurately, Warlord. But the patterns, they suggest this device can manipulate space and time themselves." Grash nodded slowly, his massive hands tracing the air above the crystalline structure without quite daring to touch it. In his 500 years of life, he had conquered 47 worlds and commanded fleets that could reduce entire star systems to ash. But he had never encountered anything that radiated such raw, fundamental power. "The shamans speak of legends," he said quietly. "Stories passed down from the time when our people served the Ancient Ones. They say that before the Great Sleep, our masters possessed weapons that could strike across any distance instantly, that could make the fastest ships seem as slow as crawling insects." Borthak shifted nervously, his equipment registering energy fluctuations that seemed to respond to their very presence. "You believe this is one of those weapons, Warlord?" "I believe," Grash replied, "that this is how we surpass every limitation that has bound our people to conventional warfare. Look at these symbols, Borthak. They're not just decoration, they're instructions." The mathematical equations carved into the portal generator's base were indeed instructions, though written in a language that existed more in the realm of pure concept than conventional symbols. They described how to fold space-time into configurations that would allow matter to travel faster than light itself, how to create stable gateways between distant points in the universe, and how to coordinate attacks across galactic distances with precision measured in microseconds. Over the following weeks, Grash devoted every resource at his disposal to understanding the ancient device. His shamans worked day and night to decipher the mathematical principles, while his engineers attempted to interface their crude technology with systems that operated on principles beyond their comprehension. Slowly, painfully, they began to unlock the secrets of portal warfare. The first successful test nearly destroyed the fortress. When Grash activated the device according to the partially decoded instructions, it tore a hole in space itself, creating a gateway that remained stable for nearly 30 seconds before collapsing with explosive force. The energy release shattered windows throughout the fortress and left every orc within a kilometer radius temporarily deaf. But through that gateway, for those precious seconds, Grash had seen another world. Not an image or a transmission, but actual visual contact with a planet that his best astronomers calculated was over 50 light-years away. "Again," he ordered, despite the protests of his advisors who feared that another test might destroy them all. The second test lasted 45 seconds and allowed Grash to send a small probe through the portal. When the gateway collapsed, the probe was gone, but the data it had transmitted in those few seconds confirmed what the Warlord had dared to hope. The portal was not just a viewing window, but an actual passage through space. By the 10th test, Grash's technicians had achieved enough understanding to create stable gateways that lasted for several minutes. By the 20th test, they could control the destination coordinates with reasonable accuracy. And by the 30th test, Grash had sent his first living warrior through a portal to a world dozens of light-years away. The warrior returned 3 hours later, bearing soil samples and atmospheric readings from a planet that should have been unreachable by any known technology. More importantly, he carried reports of a human colony that had no defenses capable of detecting or preventing portal-based attacks. Grash stood in his war room, studying star charts that had suddenly become inadequate for the kind of warfare he was beginning to envision. Traditional campaigns were limited by the speed of ships, the logistics of supply lines, and the time required to move fleets between targets. But portal technology could eliminate those limitations entirely, allowing him to strike anywhere in the galaxy without warning. "Summon the clan leaders," he ordered. "It is time to gather the full might of our people for the greatest war in Orc history." The response to Grashk's call exceeded even his ambitious expectations. Word of the portal discovery spread through Orc space like wildfire, and within months, warlords from across the galaxy were arriving at Cardmore with their fleets. Many came as allies, eager to share in the glory of conquest on an unprecedented scale. Others came as challengers, convinced that they could claim the portal technology for themselves. Grashk welcomed both allies and challengers with equal enthusiasm. The portal generator was powerful enough to equip multiple fleets, and the mathematics described methods for creating an entire network of interconnected gateways. But more importantly, the ancient device seemed to respond to conflict and violence, growing stronger as more Orc warriors gathered in its presence. The old shamans were right, Grashk told his assembled war council as they stood before the now active portal generator. This technology was created by the Ancient Ones specifically for our people. It feeds on our nature, growing more powerful as we embrace the path of conquest. The evidence supported his claim. Each act of violence committed near the portal generator increased its energy output, and the presence of large numbers of Orc warriors seemed to stabilize the gateways it created. It was as if the device had been designed to harness the fundamental nature of Orc civilization and transform it into a weapon that could reshape the galaxy. Warlord Thorgak of the Iron Skull clan was the first to challenge Grashk's claim to leadership of the Great Campaign. "You may have found the device," he growled during one particularly heated council session. "But that does not make you worthy to command all Orc forces. I say we settle this matter in the traditional way." The traditional way, of course, was single combat to the death. Grashk accepted the challenge immediately, recognizing that his authority would mean nothing if he could not defend it against other strong leaders. The duel took place in the chamber containing the portal generator, and from the moment the two warriors clashed, the device began resonating with new harmonics. Energy patterns that had remained stable for weeks suddenly began shifting and evolving, as if the ancient technology was somehow feeding on the conflict. Grashk and Thorgak were both veteran warriors, survivors of countless battles who had earned their positions through strength and cunning. But as they fought, something strange began to happen. The portal generator's energy seemed to enhance their capabilities, making them faster, stronger, and more resilient than any Orc had a right to be. The battle raged for over an hour, far longer than any normal combat between Orc warlords. Both warriors sustained wounds that should have been fatal, yet they continued fighting with increasingly superhuman abilities. Finally, Grashk managed to land a killing blow, driving his blade through Thorgak's heart. But even as his opponent died, Grashk felt something change within himself. The portal generator had not just witnessed the combat, it had somehow absorbed the essence of both warriors, making Grashk stronger while preserving something of Thorgak's tactical knowledge and experience. "The device learns from us," he realized, speaking to his shamans as they examined the energy readings from the duel. "Each battle, each victory, makes it more powerful and more intelligent." Over the following months, as more warlords arrived and more challenges were fought, the portal generator continued to evolve. It began creating multiple gateways simultaneously, coordinating complex transportation patterns that allowed entire fleets to move instantly across vast distances. It started anticipating the needs of the Orc forces, opening portals before commanders even requested them. Most disturbing of all, it began to demonstrate tactical awareness that exceeded that of any individual Orc leader. During fleet exercises, the device would suggest attack patterns and strategic deployments that proved devastatingly effective against simulated enemies. "It is becoming a war leader in its own right," observed Shaman Gerlich, the oldest and wisest of Grashk's advisors. "Perhaps that was always its purpose, not just to serve our people, but to guide us toward our ultimate destiny." Grashk found the idea both exhilarating and troubling. The portal generator was undoubtedly making his forces more powerful than any Orc army in history, but it was also changing them in ways that were not entirely under his control. Warriors who spent time near the device began developing enhanced capabilities, faster reflexes, improved tactical thinking, and an almost supernatural coordination with their fellows. What if the Ancient Ones designed it this way? He mused during a private conversation with Bordhack. What if the portal technology is not just a tool, but a test? A way to determine if our people are ready to inherit their full legacy? The question would prove more prophetic than Grash could have imagined. As the Great Orc fleet prepared to launch their campaign of galactic conquest, other forces were already moving to oppose them. The discovery of portal technology had not gone unnoticed by the galaxy's other major powers, and some of them possessed weapons that could challenge even Ancient One artifacts. But Grash the Destroyer was no longer the simple warlord who had first discovered the portal generator. Enhanced by its influence, and guided by its tactical intelligence, he had become something new, the avatar of a war that would be fought at the speed of light itself, across distances that rendered conventional strategy meaningless. The age of portal warfare was about to begin, and with it, a conflict that would determine whether the galaxy would be ruled by strength or consumed by the very weapons used to claim dominance. The war fleet that assembled around Cardmore defied every previous conception of Orc military might. Where traditional campaigns required months or years to gather forces from across clan territories, the portal technology allowed Grash to summon ships from the farthest reaches of Orc space in a matter of hours. 3,000 vessels orbited the fortress world, their combined firepower sufficient to reduce entire solar systems to cosmic debris. But raw firepower was no longer the most important factor in Grash's strategic thinking. The portal generator had taught him to see warfare in terms of pure mathematics equations that described the relationship between space, time, and the speed of light in ways that made conventional tactics obsolete. "Show me the human settlements again," he commanded from his new war room, a chamber built directly above the portal generator where its influence could enhance his tactical planning. The holographic display materialized before him, showing the locations of human colonies scattered across nearly 100 light-years of space. To a traditional Orc commander, these targets would have represented years of campaigning, with long journeys between systems and the constant risk of supply line disruption. But with portal technology, every human world was equally accessible. "Which target do we strike first, Warlord?" asked General Mordhack, one of Grash's most trusted subordinates. "All of them," Grash replied without hesitation. "Simultaneously." The concept of simultaneous attacks across dozens of star systems would have been impossible with conventional faster-than-light travel. Even the most advanced ships required days or weeks to traverse the distances involved, giving enemies time to prepare defenses and coordinate responses. But portal warfare operated by entirely different rules. "The mathematics are elegant," Grash continued, manipulating the holographic display to show attack vectors that violated every principle of traditional military strategy. "When we can move our forces at velocities that approach the speed of light itself, distance becomes irrelevant. We do not conquer worlds sequentially, we conquer them instantaneously." The portal generator had been teaching him to think in these terms, showing him tactical possibilities that emerged when the fundamental limitations of space and time were removed. Each battle fought in its presence enhanced his understanding, adding new variables to equations that described warfare on a scale no Orc had previously imagined. Bordhack, now promoted to Chief Strategic Coordinator, consulted his instruments as the portal generator began cycling through the energy patterns required for multidimensional gateway creation. "Warlord, the device is indicating it can maintain 47 stable portals simultaneously for approximately 30 minutes. That should be sufficient to deploy assault forces to every major human colony." Grash studied the tactical projections, noting how the portal network would allow his forces to coordinate attacks with precision measured in microseconds. Human defenders would find themselves facing enemies that could strike from any direction without warning, retreat through dimensional gateways when threatened, and return with reinforcements before conventional forces could respond. "Begin the deployment," he ordered. "And remember, this is not just conquest. This is a demonstration of what warfare becomes when it is freed from the constraints of distance and time. The Great Offensive began with mathematical precision. Portal gateways opened in the void near human colonies, disgorging assault fleets that appeared as if from nowhere. The attacks were coordinated to begin within seconds of each other across dozens of light years, creating the impression that the Orcs possessed resources and mobility far beyond their actual capabilities. From his command position above the portal generator, Grashk watched the battles unfold on multiple fronts simultaneously. The enhanced awareness granted by the ancient device allowed him to process tactical information from all theaters of operation at once, making strategic decisions that accounted for variables across an unprecedented scale. Human forces on Kepler 442b are attempting to coordinate a response with their fleet elements near Wolf 359, reported one of his communication officers. Estimated response time, 36 hours using their fastest ships. Unacceptable, Grashk replied. Open a portal near Wolf 359. I want their fleet engaged before they can launch. The portal generator responded to his tactical needs with what seemed like prescient intelligence, creating gateways that allowed Orc forces to intercept human reinforcements before they could reach threatened colonies. What should have been a complex multi-system campaign requiring months of planning was compressed into a series of simultaneous engagements that lasted less than a week. But as the victories mounted, Grashk began to notice troubling changes in his warriors. The Orcs who spent the most time near active portals were developing capabilities that went far beyond normal enhancement. Their reaction times approached superhuman levels, their tactical awareness expanded to encompass variables across multiple star systems, and their weapons began exhibiting properties that seemed to violate conventional physics. The effect is spreading, observed Shaman Gerlich during one of their regular consultations. Warriors who have never been near the main generator are beginning to show signs of enhancement after exposure to battlefield portals. Grashk had observed the same phenomenon. The portal network was not just a transportation system, it was somehow altering the fundamental nature of everyone who used it, creating soldiers who were perfectly adapted for warfare at the speed of light. Is this what happened to the Ancient Ones? He wondered aloud. Did they enhance themselves to the point where they transcended physical existence entirely? The question was more than philosophical curiosity. As his forces continued their advance through human space, Grashk was becoming aware that other powers in the galaxy were responding to the threat. Intelligence reports spoke of ancient defensive networks activating, of weapons systems that had been dormant for millennia suddenly coming online. Warlord, Borthak announced urgently. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy buildups in several uninhabited systems. The signatures don't match any known technology. Grashk studied the sensor data, noting energy patterns that seemed familiar yet alien. Those are portal signatures, he realized. But not created by our technology. The implications were staggering. If other species possessed portal technology, or if ancient systems were awakening in response to his campaign, then the war he had envisioned as a quick conquest might become something far more complex and dangerous. Can we determine the source of these energy buildups? He asked. Negative, Warlord. But based on the intensity levels, whatever is creating them possesses portal capabilities that exceed our own by several orders of magnitude. Grashk felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in his command chamber. The portal generator had made him the most powerful Orc warlord in history, but it had also apparently awakened forces that dwarfed even his enhanced capabilities. Summon the full council, he ordered. We need to reassess our strategic situation in light of this new intelligence. As his officers dispersed to carry out his commands, Grashk remained alone with the portal generator, studying its crystalline facets for any clue about what they might be facing. The ancient device continued its steady humming, energy patterns shifting in ways that suggested it was aware of the new developments, and was already beginning to adapt. For the first time since discovering the portal technology, Grashk began to wonder if he had awakened something that would ultimately prove beyond his ability to control. The mathematics of conquest were becoming increasingly complex, with variables that extended far beyond his understanding of warfare and power. But there was no turning back now. The great campaign had begun, and win or lose, it would determine the future of warfare itself. The first indication that Grash's campaign was encountering unexpected resistance came from the assault on Proxima Centauri, a system that intelligence reports had identified as lightly defended. The Orc attack fleet had emerged from their portal gateways to find empty space where human colonies should have been, and defensive installations that registered as nothing more than minor gravitational anomalies. "Report from Battle Group 7, announced Communications Officer Hertak, his voice tight with confusion. "They're requesting immediate tactical support. Their targeting systems cannot achieve lock on human defensive positions." Grash frowned, manipulating the holographic display to show the tactical situation at Proxima Centauri. According to the readings, the Orc fleet was engaging enemies that appeared to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, striking from positions that registered as empty space on all sensors. "The humans have cloaking technology?" he asked. "Unknown, Warlord. But their weapons are achieving remarkable accuracy despite our portal-based evasive maneuvers. It's as if they can predict where our ships will emerge from gateways before we open them." Grash studied the battle data more carefully, noting attack patterns that defied conventional tactical logic. The human defenders were not just cloaked, they were operating according to principles that seemed to violate the normal relationship between cause and effect. "Shaman Gerlich," he called to his advisor, "what do our legends say about weapons that can strike across time as well as space?" The old shaman consulted ancient texts that had been digitized into the portal generator's memory systems. "The chronicles speak of the hidden fangs weapons that the ancient ones built into the smallest and most insignificant places. Mountains that were actually fortresses, asteroids that were actually battleships, and—" He paused, his expression growing troubled. "And what, shaman?" "And molehills that contained the power to reshape reality itself." Grash felt the portal generator's energy patterns shift, as if the ancient device was responding to the mention of these legendary weapons. On the tactical display, new information began appearing, sensor readings that revealed the true nature of what his forces were fighting. The empty space around Proxima Centauri was not empty at all. It was filled with defensive installations that existed partially outside normal spacetime, weapons platforms that could strike through dimensional barriers and coordinate attacks across multiple realities simultaneously. The human colonies were protected by technology that operated on principles similar to portal generation, but focused on defense rather than transportation. "They have access to Ancient One technology," Grash realized. "Different from ours, but derived from the same mathematical principles." The discovery forced a fundamental reassessment of the strategic situation. If humanity possessed weapons that could counter portal-based attacks, then Grash's entire tactical advantage might be neutralized. Worse, if these hidden fangs were as powerful as the legends suggested, his forces might be facing defensive systems that exceeded their offensive capabilities. "Withdraw Battle Group 7, he ordered. "We need to understand what we're facing before committing additional forces." The withdrawal from Proxima Centauri was the first tactical reverse that Grash had experienced since discovering portal technology. As his ships retreated through emergency gateways, he could see that the human defenders were not pursuing. They were content to have demonstrated that Orc forces were not invulnerable. "Analysis of the engagement data shows some disturbing patterns," Bortak reported as the tactical staff assembled for an emergency conference. "The human weapons were not just accurate, they were anticipatory. They were firing at positions we would occupy before we actually occupied them." Grash studied the combat recordings, noting how human defensive fire had tracked Orc ships through portal transitions with impossible precision. "They're using some form of temporal targeting," he concluded. "Weapons that can strike across time as well as space." The implications were staggering. If humanity possessed technology that could predict and counter portal-based attacks, then the mathematical advantages that Grash had counted on might prove illusory. The speed of light was still a fundamental limit, but weapons that could fire across time itself could potentially neutralize any tactical advantage based on mobility. "Warlord," Shaman Gerlich interrupted. "The portal generator is indicating that it wishes to show us something." The ancient device had begun projecting holographic images directly into the command chamber, bypassing the normal interface systems entirely. The images showed a network of installations scattered across human space facilities so small and insignificant that they had been overlooked by Orc intelligence gathering. Molehills, Grash breathed, recognizing the installations from the shamanic legends. They're hiding their most powerful weapons in the most humble disguises. The holographic display revealed the true scope of humanity's defensive preparations. What appeared to be natural geological features, minor research stations, and even agricultural installations were actually components in a weapons network that spanned multiple star systems. Each molehill contained technology that could manipulate space-time itself, coordinating defensive patterns that approached the speed of light in their execution. How many of these installations do the humans possess? Grash asked. The portal generator's response was immediate and alarming: thousands of facilities, spread across dozens of systems, all linked by communication networks that operated faster than light itself. Humanity had not just discovered Ancient One technology, they had built an entire civilization around it. The tactical situation has changed, Grash announced to his war council. We are not facing a primitive species with limited defenses. We are facing a civilization that possesses technology comparable to our own, but optimized for different strategic purposes. The realization forced a complete revision of Orc strategic planning. Instead of quick conquest through overwhelming surprise attacks, Grash would need to develop tactics specifically designed to counter weapons that could predict and neutralize portal-based assaults. Can we modify our portal technology to counter their temporal targeting? He asked Borthak. The chief engineer consulted the portal generator's mathematical displays, studying equations that described the interaction between time and space in ways that challenged comprehension. Possibly. If we could randomize our emergence patterns according to quantum probability distributions, we might be able to confuse their targeting systems. Begin development immediately. And Borthak, I want options for attacking their molehill installations directly. If we can eliminate their command and control networks, their defensive coordination should collapse. As his staff dispersed to begin working on new tactical approaches, Grash remained alone with the portal generator, studying its ever-shifting energy patterns. The ancient device had revealed humanity's secrets, but it had also made clear that the war he had started would be far more complex than he had imagined. The mathematics of conquest were evolving in real time, with variables that included not just space and velocity, but time itself. Victory would require not just superior firepower or mobility, but a fundamental understanding of how to fight wars that operated outside the normal constraints of cause and effect. For the first time since discovering portal technology, Grash began to wonder if he had bitten off more than even an enhanced Orc could chew. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after the failed assault on Proxima Centauri, when Borthak's engineering teams successfully created the first quantum randomized portal system. Instead of opening gateways at predetermined coordinates, the new technology created multiple probability-based emergence points, forcing human defenders to spread their fire across numerous potential targets. Field test results from the Tau Ceti engagement are promising, Borthak reported to the assembled War Council. Human temporal targeting systems were unable to achieve effective lock-on when our ships emerged from randomized portals. Casualties were reduced by 73% compared to previous engagements. Grash studied the tactical data with the enhanced perception that the portal generator had granted him. The quantum randomization was indeed effective against temporal weapons, but it came at a significant cost in terms of coordination and precision. Orc forces emerging from probability-based portals were scattered across wider areas, making concentrated attacks difficult to achieve. What about our ability to coordinate simultaneous strikes? He asked. Reduced but manageable, Borthak replied. The randomization limits our precision, but the portal generator can compensate by creating larger numbers of smaller gateways. It was a trade-off between precision and survivability, but one that Grash was willing to accept. The mathematical nature of portal warfare required constant adaptation, with each tactical innovation prompting counter-innovations from the enemy. Deploy the new systems to all battle groups, he ordered, and begin preparations for Operation Lightspeed. Operation Lightspeed was Grash's most ambitious tactical concept, yet a coordinated assault on the human molehill network itself, using portal technology to achieve attack velocities that approach the fundamental speed limit of the universe. Instead of trying to outmaneuver human defenses, the Orcs would simply move too fast for those defenses to respond effectively. The plan required modifications to both portal generators and weapons systems that pushed Orc technology to its absolute limits. Ships would emerge from gateways already accelerated to significant fractions of light speed, their momentum carrying them through attack runs before human defenders could acquire target locks. Weapons would be fired at velocities approaching the speed of light itself, making evasion mathematically impossible. "The stress on our ships will be enormous," warned General Mordhack. "Accelerating to those velocities through portal transition could destroy our vessels before they can engage the enemy." "Then we will build better vessels," Grash replied simply. "The portal generator has shown us how to enhance our warriors. It can also show us how to enhance our ships." The enhancement process for Orc vessels proved to be even more dramatic than the changes experienced by individual warriors. Ships that were exposed to portal energy for extended periods began developing capabilities that defied conventional physics. Their hulls became more resilient, their engines more efficient, and their weapons more accurate. Most remarkably, they began to exhibit a form of collective intelligence that allowed them to coordinate complex maneuvers without direct communication. "The ships are evolving," observed Shaman Gerlich during one of the enhancement sessions. "They are becoming something more than mere vessels. They are becoming extensions of the warriors who pilot them." Grash had noticed the same phenomenon. Orc ships that had undergone portal enhancement seemed to anticipate their pilots' intentions, responding to commands before they were given and adapting their performance characteristics to match tactical requirements. It was as if the boundary between warrior and weapon was dissolving, creating hybrid entities perfectly adapted for warfare at relativistic speeds. The first test of Operation Lightspeed took place in an uninhabited system, with enhanced Orc vessels attempting to achieve near-light speed attack runs against simulated targets. The results exceeded Grash's most optimistic projections. Ships that emerged from quantum-randomized portals at 90% of light speed were able to complete attack runs and return to portal gateways before simulated defensive systems could respond. "Time from portal emergence to target engagement, 0.73 seconds, Mordhack reported with satisfaction. "Human temporal targeting systems require a minimum of 1.2 seconds to achieve lock-on, even when they can predict emergence coordinates." Grash nodded approvingly. At relativistic speeds, the normal rules of combat became meaningless. Weapons that fired at near-light velocity arrived at their targets almost instantaneously, while defensive systems that relied on prediction and interception simply could not respond fast enough to be effective. "Begin deployment to all combat units," he ordered, "and prepare target lists for the major molehill installations. It's time to test our new capabilities against real enemies." The assault on the human molehill network began with attacks on the most isolated installations, facilities that intelligence had identified as critical nodes in the defensive network. Enhanced Orc ships emerged from quantum-randomized portals at speeds that turned them into relativistic projectiles, striking their targets with kinetic energy equivalent to antimatter explosions. The attacks were devastatingly effective. Human defensive installations that had been designed to counter conventional portal assaults were simply overwhelmed by attackers moving at near-light speed. Temporal targeting systems that could predict portal emergence locations proved useless against weapons that arrived at their targets before defensive computers could complete their calculations. "Success across all primary targets," reported Communications Officer Hertak. "Human defensive networks in Sectors 7 through 12 have been disrupted. Their coordination capabilities appear to be significantly degraded." Grash felt a surge of satisfaction as he watched the tactical displays update with confirmed kills across multiple star systems. The combination of quantum-randomized portals and relativistic attack speeds was proving to be the breakthrough he had hoped for, finally giving his forces the advantage they needed against human defensive technology. But even as victories mounted, he was becoming aware of disturbing changes in his enhanced warriors and ships. The modifications that allowed them to function at relativistic speeds were also altering their fundamental nature in ways that were difficult to predict or control. "Warlord," Shaman Gerlich said quietly during a private consultation, "I am concerned about the long-term effects of the enhancement process. Our warriors are becoming something other than orcs, and our ships are developing behaviors that suggest they may not remain under our control indefinitely." Grashk had observed the same troubling trends. Enhanced orcs were beginning to exhibit capabilities that seemed almost supernatural: reaction times measured in microseconds, tactical awareness that spanned multiple star systems, and an understanding of portal mathematics that exceeded even his own enhanced intellect. They were becoming perfectly adapted for warfare at the speed of light, but they were also becoming something that might not be recognizably orc. The Ancient Ones faced the same choice, he realized. Enhancement to the point of transcendence, or limitation to preserve their original nature. And they chose transcendence, Gerlich observed, which led to their disappearance from the physical universe. Grashk studied the portal generator's ever-shifting energy patterns, wondering if he was following the same path that had led his people's former masters to abandon physical existence entirely. The mathematics of conquest were leading inexorably toward a conclusion that might eliminate the very civilization he was trying to empower. But the war was far from over, and humanity was already beginning to adapt to his new tactics. Intelligence reports spoke of new defensive technologies under development, weapons that could function at relativistic speeds and coordinate responses across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The speed of war was accelerating beyond the comprehension of unenhanced minds, approaching velocities where the very concepts of space and time began to break down. Victory would require pushing enhancement even further, regardless of the consequences for Orc civilization. Grashk the Destroyer was about to become something far more dangerous than any warlord in history. He was about to become a weapon that could operate at the speed of light itself. The portal generator had evolved far beyond its original configuration, growing into a vast crystalline matrix that filled the entire chamber beneath Cardmore. Its energy patterns had become so complex that they required enhanced Orc consciousness to interpret, and its capabilities now extended into realms of physics that conventional science could not explain. Grashk stood at the center of the transformed device, his own enhancement having progressed to the point where he existed as much in the mathematical realm of pure strategy as in physical reality. The boundary between his consciousness and the portal generator's intelligence had blurred, creating a hybrid entity that could comprehend warfare on scales that spanned entire galactic clusters. "The humans have activated something," he announced to his war council, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated through dimensional space. "Their response to our relativistic assaults has been to awaken technologies that exceed even Ancient One capabilities." The tactical displays now showed threats that defied conventional visualization, weapons that existed in multiple realities simultaneously, defensive networks that could manipulate the fundamental constants of physics, and something that the portal generator had identified as a transcendence engine of incomprehensible power. "Warlord," General Morghak said carefully, his own enhancement allowing him to perceive threats across multiple dimensions. "Our intelligence suggests that the humans have discovered how to weaponize the speed of light itself. They are preparing to deploy weapons that can strike at any target instantaneously, regardless of distance or dimensional barriers." Grashk nodded, his enhanced perception already analyzing the mathematical implications. Weapons that operated at exactly the speed of light would be undetectable until the moment of impact, and their effects would propagate through space-time in ways that could disrupt portal networks across galactic distances. "Show me the human transcendence engine," he commanded. The portal generator responded by projecting a holographic representation of a facility that appeared to be hidden within a natural hill on the human homeworld. The installation was so deeply concealed that it registered as nothing more than a minor geographical feature, but its energy signature indicated technology that could manipulate reality at the quantum level. "They have learned to hide ultimate weapons in the most insignificant places," observed Shaman Gerlich, his own consciousness having evolved to perceive patterns across multiple layers of reality. "This molehill contains power sufficient to reshape the fundamental laws of physics." Grashk studied the installation with growing concern. The human transcendence engine was not just a weapon, it was a device capable of accelerating evolution itself, transforming ordinary humans into beings that could function at the speed of light. If humanity achieved that level of enhancement, they would become adversaries that even his evolved Orc forces could not defeat. "Can we destroy it before they complete their transformation?" he asked. The portal generator's response was immediate, and troubling. The human facility was protected by defensive systems that operated outside normal spacetime, making conventional attacks ineffective. Worse, any assault on the Transcendence engine would likely trigger its activation, accelerating human evolution to completion within moments. "We face a paradox," Grasht realized. "We cannot destroy the device without triggering the very outcome we seek to prevent." The strategic situation had evolved beyond conventional warfare into something that resembled a cosmic chess game, with moves and countermoves that operated according to the fundamental laws of reality itself. Victory would require not just superior firepower or mobility, but the ability to manipulate the mathematical principles that governed existence. "There is another option," Shaman Gerlich said quietly. "We could attempt to complete our own transcendence first, evolving beyond physical existence before the humans achieve their transformation." Grasht considered the possibility, feeling the portal generator's energy patterns shift in response to his thoughts. Full transcendence would grant power beyond imagination, but it would also mean abandoning the physical universe entirely, becoming entities of pure mathematics and force that existed beyond the boundaries of space and time. "And if we fail?" he asked. "Then both our species evolve beyond recognition, and the conflict becomes something that transcends the physical universe entirely." The choice before Grasht was one that would determine not just the outcome of the war, but the future evolution of consciousness in the galaxy. He could attempt to destroy the human transcendence engine and risk accelerating their transformation, or he could pursue transcendence himself and potentially abandon everything that made Orc civilization worth preserving. "Begin preparations for full enhancement," he ordered finally. "If transcendence is inevitable, then we will be the first to achieve it." The process of preparing for transcendence required modifications to the portal generator that pushed it beyond its original design limitations. Energy patterns that had once been stable began fluctuating wildly, and the crystalline matrix started growing at an exponential rate. Within days, the device had expanded to fill the entire fortress world, transforming Cardmore into a single massive transcendence engine. "The enhancement process will be irreversible," Bordhack warned as he prepared the final modifications. "Once we begin, there will be no returning to our original forms." Grasht nodded, understanding the implications completely. Transcendence would grant power that operated at the speed of light itself, but it would also mean the end of Orc civilization as it had existed for millennia. They would become something new, something that might not even remember what they had once been. "All personnel, prepare for final enhancement," he announced to his forces. "In minutes, we will become the ultimate weapons in our own war." The transcendence process began with every Orc warrior on Cardmore simultaneously, their individual consciousness merging with the portal generator's vast intelligence. Physical forms dissolved into patterns of pure energy, while minds expanded to encompass understanding that spanned multiple dimensions. Grasht felt his individual identity stretching and transforming as he became part of something infinitely larger than any single being. His strategic awareness expanded to encompass the entire galaxy simultaneously, while his tactical capabilities evolved to operate at speeds that made relativistic warfare seem sluggish. But even as transcendence neared completion, alarms began resonating through the dimensional matrix that the portal generator had become. The human transcendence engine had activated, triggered by the energy signatures of the Orc transformation process. Across space, two species were simultaneously evolving beyond physical existence, racing toward a form of warfare that would be fought with mathematics and pure will rather than ships and weapons. The universe itself was about to become the battlefield for entities that existed at the speed of light. The age of conventional warfare was ending, replaced by conflicts that would reshape reality according to the mathematical principles that governed existence itself. In the end, there were no winners in the traditional sense. The transcendence of both species occurred simultaneously, triggered by detection systems that had been built into the Ancient One's technology millions of years earlier. As Orc and human consciousness expanded beyond physical limitations, they discovered that they were not the first to attempt such evolution. The galaxy was filled with the mathematical ghosts of civilizations that had made similar choices eons before. Grashk, no longer bound by individual identity but existing as part of a vast collective intelligence, found himself engaged in warfare that operated according to principles he had never imagined. Battles were fought with equations that could reshape reality, while strategy involved manipulating the fundamental constants that governed space and time. The human transcendence engine had produced entities of equal capability, consciousness that could operate at the speed of light and wage war across multiple dimensions simultaneously. What had begun as a conventional conflict between species had evolved into something that resembled cosmic mathematics made manifest. But in their new forms, both sides began to understand the true nature of the Ancient One's legacy. The portal technology, the enhancement systems, the transcendence engines all had been designed as a test, a way to determine which species were ready to join a galactic community that existed beyond physical reality. The war was never about conquest. The entity that had once been Grashk realized, his consciousness now spanning star systems and comprehending patterns that stretched across geological time. It was about evolution. About forcing us to become something worthy of the inheritance left by those who came before. The conflict that had begun with the discovery of a single portal generator had become a catalyst for the evolution of consciousness itself. Physical space became a realm for lesser beings, while the truly advanced existed in mathematical dimensions where thought and reality were indistinguishable. But transcendence came with a price. The enhanced beings could manipulate matter and energy with thought alone, could travel instantly across any distance, and could wage wars that reshaped galaxies. But they could no longer experience the simple pleasures of physical existence, the satisfaction of a well-fought battle, the camaraderie of warriors, or the basic emotions that had once defined their species. In the dimensions beyond space and time, former enemies became allies in a larger struggle to maintain the balance between order and chaos across the universe. The Orcs' warrior nature and humanity's innovative spirit proved to be complementary aspects of a cosmic intelligence that spanned multiple realities. The moleholes that had once hidden humanity's greatest weapons were revealed to be far more than defensive installations. They were components in a network that maintained the stability of physical reality itself, ensuring that the universe remained habitable for species that had not yet achieved transcendence. We are the gardeners now. The collective consciousness that included both human and orc elements realized. Our wars are fought not for territory or resources, but to ensure that younger civilizations have the opportunity to evolve as we have. The portal technology that had started the conflict continued to function, but now it served a different purpose. Instead of facilitating conquest, it provided a means for transcended beings to intervene subtly in the development of emerging civilizations, guiding them toward their own eventual transcendence. Physical space was left to species that still possessed individual bodies and fought conventional wars. But watching over them, invisible and incomprehensible, were the mathematical entities that had once been orcs and humans, ensuring that the cycle of growth and evolution continued. The speed of war had accelerated beyond the limits of physical reality, reaching velocities where conflict became indistinguishable from creation. In dimensions that existed at the speed of light itself, former enemies worked together to maintain a universe where new forms of consciousness could emerge and eventually join them in the eternal struggle to understand and preserve the cosmos. Grashk the Destroyer had achieved his ultimate victory, not the conquest of enemies, but the transcendence of conflict itself. In becoming a weapon that operated at the speed of light, he had discovered that the greatest power was not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when destruction was unnecessary. The war was over, but the evolution of consciousness continued, guided by beings who existed in the space between thought and reality, where mathematics and meaning were one and the same. And on countless worlds throughout the galaxy, new civilizations continued to grow and develop, unaware that their struggles were being watched by entities who had once fought similar battles and who would ensure that the cycle of growth and transcendence never ended. In the humblest molehills and the grandest starships, The universe continued its eternal work of creating consciousness capable of understanding itself, one species at a time, one war at a time, at the speed of light itself.